these before.
I never heard these before.
Let's get back to that hot show. Broadcasting on the beach, broadcasting live from the WGBB studios. It is your host, Halftime Howie.
Thank you, Brian. And you know what? We really love being in the studio. There's a certain vibe with the microphones, and we can meet Brian, who's an awesome engineer and a great guy. So, woo-hoo. Brian, we love coming to your house tonight. Woo! All right. You know, I love creating segments, and Rocco and Richard are great friends, and I thought it'd be really interesting to do a segment on famous celebrities that have flown their own airplanes, because we've got some fascinating stories of some very famous people. So, Richard, why don't we start with you?
Good evening, Long Island. This is Rich, and the skies are clear as always, so you've just been clear for takeoff. I want to start off with probably one of the most famous celebrities who took an interest in aviation. Not too many people remember John Denver from now, unless you're a baby boomer like me. John Denver was fascinated by aviation at an early age, and even in some of the songs that he wrote, you can kind of get that vibe that he was into flying. And one of the things that I noticed with Denver was his passion for the experimental aircraft, like the Long Easy that he flew, which was designed by famous aviation designer and pioneer Burt Rutan. The Long Easy was ultimately the plane that killed him. But what he loved about it was the open air cockpit, similar to what you see on competition airplanes and fighter airplanes. It made him feel like he was soaring up there with the birds and the eagles that he so very much loved. And that same passion can also be found in our next celebrity, JFK Jr. JFK Jr. had a very unique child upbringing in the sense that his father was a president who was assassinated. So he turned to flying to get him through a lot of the grief. He turned to aviation as a therapy in sorts to get him through the loss. And sadly, he was flying an aircraft that he wasn't even authorized to be flying, a Piper Saratoga TC. This is an ILS type aircraft that utilizes its instruments for guidance. He was not trained in that, and his instructor even begged him not to go. He said, let me go, I'll go with you. Of course, his girlfriend was with them, and
his wife, actually.
Actually, his wife was with him, very macho, did not want to look any less confident, so he took the plane up from West Caldwell, an airport I'm familiar with, actually, and sadly, he got so disoriented, he developed what's called spatial disorientation. A lot of times with pilots who are new to these planes, you become very disoriented. Your environment can actually confuse you to the point where you don't know where land is. That particular night, it was so foggy, he had no idea he was over the water. He thought he was over land, so he tried to land and wound up crashing the plane into the water off the coast of Martha's Vineyard. Sadly, he and his wife passed away, and it just showcases how sometimes celebrities think they know everything and they become overconfident. But this particular celebrity is my personal favorite. I have such a love for him and such a deep admiration, John Travolta. John Travolta may be one of the world's most passionate role models for aviation. He is currently a spokesman for Swiss watchmaker Breitling, which is an accomplishment that very few Americans can actually say they've done. He is also the official ambassador for the Australian national airline Qantas. In fact, he owns his own Boeing 707, which he painted for Qantas, and to promote Qantas back in the early millennium, right before 9/11, he was supposed to fly that jet to 13 cities as an ambassador for the airline to promote the airline's passion for service. Today, he currently operates his own fleet of jets out of his home in Ocala, Florida. He has a unique setting in the fact that his backyard's his own runway. So basically, he flies right out of the backyard of his home, Rocco. I know, it's insane. But what I love about John is he's very down to earth. When he's been interviewed, he is very down to earth. He's not arrogant at all about it. He's very passionate. And one of the things that I find most fascinating, he is the only civilian, non-test pilot to ever fly the super jumbo Airbus A380. A fact. Airbus was so impressed by what he did for Qantas that Qantas and Airbus, as a surprise, they organized a trip to fly him out to Toulouse to fly one of the prototypes. Not only did he fly it, he outflew some of what the test pilots did. The test pilots were very impressed by his skill. He also wrote a book back in 1992 that's published about aviation called One Way Night Coach. In it, the book revolves around a character by the name of Jeff, which is based off of him and his experience as a pilot. If you ever get the chance, I recommend picking up this book. It's a fascinating read, and it kind of paints a picture of how he became interested in aviation and why aviation has got him through so much. And I think that the most fascinating thing about him was when his son Jet died. Rather than retreat, like so many of us who, I don't know what it's like to lose a kid. I'm single, I'm not married, I've never had children, but I can only imagine the grief of losing a child. There is no greater pain or loss. Rather than retreat into psychosis, he instead increased his passion, increased his involvement with Qantas, shot several videos. He even shot a documentary for the United States Navy promoting the anniversary of their precision squadron, the Blue Angels. He has never given up his love for aviation. And since his birth back in February of 1954, his first flight was on a DC-6 at age 8. Not many people can remember what they did at age 8. He not only remembered it, it fueled him, so when he started getting acting jobs, he would use the money, his own paychecks, to teach himself and get lessons to become a pilot, which I think is amazing. So that's what really got him into it, Rocco. And even as an actor, he's extraordinary. But as a pilot, few people can say that he's a dual role. What do you think?
I think it's incredible. Like when you get to do one. You have one talent, then you have another talent on top of it. It's just, it just expands your worldview. I think the person closest to John Travolta would have to be Harrison Ford. He had a love of flying for a long time. He owns a de Havilland Canada DHC-2 Beaver, which is a former U.S. military model restored by Kenmore Air. There's also a Cessna 525 that he owns, and an Aviat A1B. He's very much into aviation. He's also participates in search and rescue operations whenever he can. One story was regarding a missing hiker, and another was regarding a missing Boy Scout back in 2001. And basically, with Harrison Ford, he just loves flying. Like he just sees it as like the ultimate adventure. I mean, he wanted to be a pilot, and then I think he kind of got sidetracked into the film business. And then as he became more successful as an actor, he decided to kind of go back to his original, to see if he could reach that thing that he never quite was able to accomplish. And tour forward he did. And there's other people that are truly fantastic. Tom Cruise. He, when he did his role in Top Gun, it made him a lifelong fan of planes. He has a $1 million Aviat. He has a Pitts S2B, a $1.2 million Beech F90, and a $28 million Gulfstream IV jet.
Yeah, the Gulfstream 4.
Oh, Gulfstream 4, I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's okay. The G4 is a popular corporate jet, I know.
Yeah, and then one more I should point that's probably the most surprising to me was Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman wanted to be a pilot, but he got, acting became his main calling, but at the age of 65, he managed to get his license, and he owns 3 private planes, which are a single-engine land plane, a multi-engine land plane, and an instrument airplane. So it just shows that you're never too old to accomplish your dreams.
Absolutely.
All right, great job. All right, so we've got Dane coming up next with the surfing report, and by the final word on Harrison Ford, his ex-wife is a very, very smart lady. You know why, Rocco?
Why?
When they got divorced, this is the divorce settlement that Harrison Ford's ex-wife got. $100 million lump sum payment plus 50% of whatever he earns for the rest of his life.
That's crazy.
And with that Star Wars movie, oh my God, she's going to be laughing to the bank.
Imagine that, $100 million lump sum, not enough. She gets 50% of whatever he earns the rest of his life. So his ex-wife did pretty well. And with that, let's